Hello there and a very good evening and welcome to the news tonight where we get you the day's top stories from India and across the world. I'm Tracy Shilchi and let's start with the headlines. The Samajwadi Party to contest Bihar elections with Samajwadi Janata Dal Democratic, the NCP and the NPP. Mulayam's party calls it the third alternative. Need bans, no way to inculcate ahimsa, says the Supreme Court, endorses the High Court's stay on the enforcing of it in Mumbai during the Jain festival. Delhi hospitals struggle to cope with the dengue onslaught. Number of infected people now touches 2,000, while the High Court asks government bodies to explain steps to check the crisis. After 7 years of deliberations, Nepal's Constituent Assembly approves the new constitution, splits the country into 7 federal provinces. Millions are evacuated in Chile after an 8.3 magnitude earthquake strikes the country. Seismologists warn of aftershocks and tsunamis. Top story this evening in a significant development. This, of course, regarding the Bihar Assembly polls. Samajwadi Party has decided to contest the Bihar elections as part of a third front. The Samajwadi Party has joined hands with 3 other parties to be the alternative to the Grand Alliance and the NDA.
Samajwadi Party will contest the Bihar Assembly polls with Samajwadi Janata Dal Democratic, NCP and the National People's Party. SP wants this combination to be the third alternative before the electorate after the NDA and the Grand Alliance.
ये फर्स्ट फेज के उम्मीदवारों की घोषणा कल पटना में कर देंगे और उसके 2 दिन बाद सेकंड फेज के उम्मीदवारों की घोषणा हो जाएगी। थर्ड, फोर्थ और फिफ्थ फेज की घोषणा एक साथ उससे कुछ दिनों बाद कर दी जाएगी।
विकास मुद्दा रहेगा, प्राथमिकता रहेगी बिहार के विकास का, बिहार के बिजली का, बिहार के किसान और मजदूरों का हितों का सवाल उठेगा। जो बिहार के नौजवान हैं, बेरोजगार हैं, जो शिक्षा का मामला है, जो खास करके कृषि उद्योग आधारित जो होना चाहिए उद्योग कृषि आधारित, इन सारे मामलों पर बाढ़ सुखाड़ वहाँ का मूल समस्या है। बिहार को एक नया विकल्प मिलेगा पहली बार।
The third front is yet to decide on its chief ministerial candidate, but it is sure of the reasons for leaving the Grand Alliance. Samajwadi Party says it was difficult to give up its identity by merging with the JDU-led alliance.
जब एक पार्टी बनने की बात आती है तो एक आदमी भी अगर अलग हो जाता है तो पार्टी के सिंबल और उस पर दिक्कत आती है और ये आना था। ये हमने पहले कहा था और आपने देख लिया कि वही नौबत आती तो आज न समाजवादी पार्टी होती, न कोई दल होता, न चुनाव चिन्ह होता हमारे पास।
The election in Bihar will essentially be a direct fight between the JDU-led Grand Alliance and the NDA. But with Samajwadi Party joining the fray separately, there are fears of a split in votes. Whether or not the BJP gains from it, it will surely dent the vote base of the JDU-RJD Congress combined. And in the battle of perception before the polls, the Grand Alliance seems to be the bigger loser. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, Lok Janshakti Party held a meeting today to deliberate on the candidates for the Bihar Assembly polls. The parliamentary board of the party met and decided on candidates for the 29 seats. The LJP is contesting 40 seats in all as part of the NDA. The names of the finalized candidates will be announced on Friday.
एनडीए के भीतर हम लोगों को जो 40 सीटों की हम लोगों की चर्चा हो रही है उसमें से लगभग 29 सीटों पर हम लोगों की सहमति बन चुकी है। ऑफिशियल तौर पर, औपचारिक तौर पर आज हम लोगों की पार्लियामेंट्री बोर्ड की बैठक हुई जिसमें तमाम बोर्ड के सदस्यों को इन 29 सीटों की जानकारी दी गई और साथ में ही संभावित प्रत्याशियों के नाम पर भी आज इस पर चर्चा हुई।
पार्लियामेंट्री बोर्ड में सारी बातों को डिस्कस किया गया जिसमें पार्टी का गठबंधन बिहार में, पार्टी कौन कौन से सीट पे लड़ेगी, पार्टी में किस तरह से समीकरण बनाया जाएगा, आगे की रणनीति क्या होगी, सब चीज़ों पर डिस्कशन किया गया।
The Supreme Court today dismissed a petition filed against a Bombay High Court order staying the decision to ban the sale of meat in Mumbai during the Jain festival. A Jain organization filed the petition stating that the ban during the fasting period of Paryushan was an expression of compassion to animals and a practice of non-violence. However, the Supreme Court endorsed the High Court order stating that a ban cannot be shoved down someone's throat adding that a spirit of tolerance had to be inculcated. The court also observed that compassion should not be reserved for festival periods only and that bans were not the way to inculcate non-violence. Now to the health crisis in the national capital, and dengue has claimed 2 more lives in Delhi, taking the toll up to 16. Concerned over the rapid spread of the vector-borne disease, the Home Ministry today reviewed the situation, while the Delhi Health Minister also met 3 mayors. This came even as the Delhi High Court sought responses from the centre, the Delhi government and civic bodies on the steps taken by them to check the dengue menace.
Hospitals overflowing with patients, struggling to cope with the rush. The story is the same in all hospitals across the national capital. The situation is dire to say the least, with the number of people infected with dengue reaching 2,000. 2 girl victims aged 3 and 9 took the death toll to 16, making it the worst outbreak in Delhi in 5 years. The Home Ministry expressed concern over the crisis of hospital beds and directed the Delhi government to take urgent steps to remedy matters. The Deputy Chief Minister also met the 3-zone MCD commissioners to discuss the steps.
एकदम युद्ध स्तर में इसको हल करना चाहिए और दिल्ली सरकार उस पर पूरा मेरे ख्याल से काम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन और तेजी से करने का आवश्यकता है। केंद्र सरकार की ओर से तो हेल्थ मिनिस्ट्री इन्वॉल्व है और हम लोग गृह मंत्रालय का यहाँ से भी हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि कोई आवश्यकता अगर कार्रवाई हमारी ओर से होगा तो जरूर करेंगे।
मॉनिटरिंग के लिए सारी टीम्स बनाई हैं, स्ट्रिक्ट ऑर्डर्स हैं सबको कि जितने भी यहाँ से डायरेक्शंस गए हैं उनको ठीक से पालन कराएं और हमारे डीएम्स और एसडीएम्स सुबह और शाम पूरे इलाकों में घूम घूम के देखेंगे कि फॉगिंग हो रही है कि नहीं हो रही है। डेंगू से लड़ाई हम सबको मिलकर लड़नी है, इसमें पैसा मैन पावर किसी भी रूप में बाधा नहीं बनना चाहिए। जितने पैसे की जरूरत है पैसा देंगे, जितने लोगों की जरूरत है लोग देंगे, सिविल डिफेंस वॉलंटियर्स लगाएंगे, पूरी फोर्स लगाएंगे और लगा रहे हैं हम पूरे।
The developments came after the Delhi High Court asked the centre, the state government and civic bodies to explain what is being done to check the crisis.
म्युनिसिपल कॉरपोरेशंस ऑफ दिल्ली, एनडीएमसी, दिल्ली सरकार और केंद्र सरकार सभी को नोटिस जारी किया है और ये कहा है कि वो स्टेटस रिपोर्ट फाइल करें कि वो डेंगू की रोकथाम के लिए क्या-क्या कदम उठाए गए हैं और क्या-क्या कदम उठाए जा रहे हैं।
The Delhi government has asked private hospitals to increase the number of beds and hire more staff. Private hospitals have also been asked not to charge more than 600 rupees for the dengue test. However, the opposition alleges failure of the state and the centre in checking the spread of the disease.
हमारा ये कहना है कि जब डेंगू और मलेरिया से लड़ने के लिए जो पैसा है वो पैसा अगर खर्च नहीं करा जाएगा, वो पैसा अगर नहीं दिया जाएगा इस वक्त जिस वक्त सबसे ज्यादा जरूरत है, तो फिर उस पैसे को कब यूज किया जाएगा? तो ये सरकार की तरफ से असंवेदनशीलता है।
The Indian Medical Association has said that the current virus type is less fatal compared to the one prevalent in 2013. It has also appealed to the people not to panic or demand hospital admission unless urgent. Authorities claim this is not an outbreak, even as the upsurge in the disease has left Delhi shaken. With inputs from Vikram Singh, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
On to more news, and Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has said that over the next few days, the government will try and sort out many outstanding tax disputes through judicial or executive resolutions. He said while a number of tax disputes have been put to rest since the BJP government came to office, others are being resolved now. He also stated that the system of allocation of natural resources has been rationalized and the controversies put to rest, even as many other reforms are in the pipeline. Earlier this month, the Finance Ministry decided not to press claims for a minimum alternative tax against foreign portfolio investors, an issue that was a sticking point with foreign investors and threatened to become another long-drawn legal dispute.
Our taxation systems are pending disputes. Now, a number of them have been put to rest, and we are trying over the next few days itself so that many others can be put to sleep, either by a judicial resolution or by an executive resolution.
Well, let's take you through more updates from across the country and nationwide. The Supreme Court has stayed the operation of the Raj Act 2015. The Act prescribes matriculation as the minimum educational qualification for contesting local bodies elections. Notices have been issued to the state government and the State Election Commission seeking their responses to a petition challenging the validity of the law. The Act has been challenged by 3 candidates considered ineligible to contest the ongoing Panchayat elections. A Saudi diplomat accused of holding captive, beating and raping 2 Nepali women hired as domestic help in his Delhi apartment has left India under diplomatic immunity. It is said that the MEA had put pressure on the Saudi embassy to allow the questioning of the diplomat, following which Saudi Arabia decided to withdraw him. Senior IS officer and Principal Secretary Ashok Singhvi has been arrested by Rajasthan's Anti-Corruption Bureau in an alleged case of graft involving 2.55 crore rupees. The ACB seized cash that was to be delivered to Singhvi and other officers. The amount was allegedly taken from a Chittorgarh-based mines owner to allow him to restart operations which were shut down by the mines department. The family of Odisha's Prabhas Ranjan Samal, one of the 2 men abducted by the Islamic State in Libya yesterday, have made an appeal to the extremist group to free him. They've also asked authorities to help secure his release. The Ministry of External Affairs says that all efforts are being made to ensure their well-being and secure their early release. Without a quick break, and still ahead, Vice President Hamid Ansari reaches Laos after wrapping up his visit to Cambodia. Details of that after a bit.
In search for bureaucratic reforms, the government to target dishonest officers. This battle against inefficiency, how will it translate into action? Watch the big picture on Rajya Sabha television at 9:30 p.m.
Today we bring to you the Waqf Properties Eviction of Unauthorized Occupants Bill 2014.
All the persons are occupying the Waqf properties and the Waqf board was not taking any action.
The whole purpose is going to be defeated if this new provision regarding limitation or regarding the applicability of the provisions with retrospective effect is not inserted.
Watch Law of the Land Saturday at 6:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back to the news tonight. Now, Vice President Hamid Ansari arrived in Laos today for his 2-day visit. He will be meeting his counterpart Bonhang Vorachith and Prime Minister Thongloun Sisoulith. He will also be discussing bilateral issues and cooperation in ASEAN, MGC and other multilateral fora. In fact, earlier he wrapped up his 3-day visit to Cambodia with a visit to the world's largest Hindu temple complex, Angkor Wat, in the country. He also travelled to Siem Reap province to visit Angkor Wat, Taprom temples and the Mekong Ganga Textile Museum, set up after former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee announced a grant of $1 million for it. Angkor Wat is a massive 3-tiered pyramid crowned by 5 lotus-like flowers rising 65 meters from the ground. Well, our correspondent Nilo Vyas is in fact tracking all those developments there, not just in Cambodia, but now in Laos as well, which is, of course, going to be a 2-day visit of the Vice President. We're hoping to patch up with her in just a bit, of course. But remember, this is, of course, the first visit by an Indian Vice President to Laos, and it is, of course, being seen as, highly anticipated, not just on the front of trade, but also on the front of cultural, the community there, of course, and the cultural ties that, of course, India has with Laos. All right, for more, Nilo Vyas, in fact, joining us on the phone line. Nilo, give us a sense really of how crucial this visit is. How significant, rather, is it?
Tracy, it's really a significant visit in the sense that it's the first visit by any vice president, especially from India. And it's the first high-level visit by any Indian official, especially after former President Pratibha Patil visited this country in 2010. But the basic focus of this entire visit really would be to deepen the bilateral ties, especially the trade links which will be a part of India's Act East policy. Now remember, the total trade between these two nations is close to about $90 million US. And this evening, when Vice President, along with his delegation, met the entire Indian community, along with the ambassador and other officials, the basic focus of his entire speech was that we need to strengthen and deepen the commercial ties because the present bilateral trade, as what Vice President Hamid Ansari said, was that it is not reflective of our potential. So there is a need of more interaction. And in fact, we also spoke to a number of business community members who were present at that evening function, and they said that now they are expecting that with this Vice President's visit, there will be more interactions from the members of the chambers of commerce. There will be more participative exhibitions. So there are a whole lot of expectations from especially the private sector, and they're looking forward to this visit. But to tell you in a crux as to what is going to really happen tomorrow, in the morning, we have an early morning tomorrow where Vice President will be signing two crucial memorandum of understanding followed by delegation level talks. And then he is also going to visit two places which are of significant national value. Tracy, back to you.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Nilu, thanks so much for joining us. We'll come back to you, of course, for more updates there from Laos. All right, now on to the other big story that we're tracking. And in a historic moment, Nepal has approved a new constitution after 7 years of painstaking efforts and deliberations. The Constituent Assembly overwhelmingly approved the new constitution that splits the country into 7 federal provinces. The charter was passed by a 507 to 25 vote in the 601-seat assembly. Lawmakers from the Nepali Congress, CPN-UML and the UCPN Maoists supported the draft constitution, while voting was boycotted by smaller opposition parties. The bill will now become the country's new charter once the lawmakers sign and the Constituent Assembly chairperson authenticates it. In fact, violent protests, though, have rocked Nepal in the lead-up to this constitution being approved. Ethnic groups oppose the makeup, borders and, of course, the size of those 7 provinces. Well, talking about the significance of this constitution, we've got former diplomat KV Ranjan joining us in studio this evening. Thanks so much, sir, for being here with us. As we were talking about, of course, this is significant. Could you shed some light, really, also on how India is viewing it?
Well, I think the good news is that Nepal at long last has a constitution after 8 or 9 years of a painful debate and very divisive debate. This is the second Constituent Assembly which was trying to approve of a new constitution because the previous one failed to do so. And it failed to do so because of the question of federalism, what should be, how many provinces Nepal should have, what should be the borders of the provinces, the names of the provinces. That was the main consideration on which the first Constituent Assembly had to be dissolved because the parties could not agree. Now, what happened in the last Constituent Assembly elections was that the 2 parties, which were the single biggest parties in the previous Constituent Assembly, suddenly became much lower down, came much lower down in the order. And the 2 parties form about federalism, the Nepali Congress and the CPN-UML, became party number 1 and party number 2 and had the numbers, they had the majority. Now, the population, the electorate in Nepal had rejected the 2 parties which were most enthusiastic about federalism in the previous Constituent Assembly, but not rejected the idea of inclusion or rejected the idea of federalism. What happened now was that because of the numbers which were with the 2 or 3 most important parties in parliament, there was an effort to push through the draft constitution without adequate consultation, without adequate consensus. And therefore, there is a sense of very deep disappointment in the Tarai, in the other marginalized communities in Nepal, like the Dalits and the Tharus. And that is why there were very widespread protests, which unfortunately were put down rather insensitively and brutally by the authorities, by the armed forces and so on.
Yes, in fact, that was what I was going to ask you, sir, that, even despite seeing this a huge majority that, of course, supports the Constitution and, of course, the provisions as well that we've been seeing, in Parliament, of course, there's this, in Assembly, there was this huge, a big majority that passed it. But on the streets, there seems to be a lot of discontent. And, 40 plus people have, died so far. The protests, of course, still continuing. Is this actually valid, that the fact that the ethnic minorities are going to feel more alienated?
Well, there's no doubt about it that this was not the kind of inclusive Nepal which was dreamt of some years ago, nor was it the kind of Nepal which was promised to the ethnic minorities, to the Madeshis and the Tharus and the Dalits and so on. Because traditionally Nepal has been ruled by a few communities, families and upper castes. And the idea was to have a more inclusive Nepal which would empower the marginalized sections of the population. Unfortunately, the way the provinces have now been decided without any real consultation or acceptance by the Madeshis and others, and the way certain other provisions of the constitution have been approved, it would seem that the old feudal order is being sought to be continued. So it's a kind of a feudal federalism only in name, but really a continuation of the old feudal order. Now, the hope is that even now, at this late stage, the main political parties which have pushed through the constitution will realize that this kind of situation is not sustainable in Nepal. It cannot make for a harmonious society in the long run, and that due correctives will be applied in the weeks or months to come.
All right, we'll leave it there for now, Mr. K.V. Ranjan. Thanks so much for joining us and shedding some light on this story, something that we'll be keeping an eye out on here on Rajya Sabha TV. Meanwhile, let's get you some international news. And mass evacuations are underway in Chile after a powerful earthquake of 8.3 magnitude hit the country today. At least 10 people have died in earthquake-related incidents so far. In fact, in Chile's coastal town of Coquimbo, waves of up to 4.5 meters high hit the shore. However, the tsunami alert has been lifted for now.
Over 1 million people have been evacuated in quake-hit Chile. A powerful earthquake of 8.3 magnitude shook the country off the coast of Coquimbo, 46 kilometers west of the city of Illapel on Wednesday. Residents fled into the streets in terror as their homes swayed. Most of them were traveling to the coast ahead of a week of celebrations for the Independence Day.
Efectivamente nos encontramos acá en el casco histórico de la comuna de Illapel, donde hemos sufrido bastantes problemas debido a las construcciones que son antiguas de adobe y que han sufrido derrumbe. En general lamentamos un fallecido, una joven.
Authorities were quick to issue tsunami alerts as waves of 4.5 meters high pounded the coastal areas. However, the alert has been lifted for now.
Pero no era una ola, fue con una marea alta.
Una marea alta, con fuerza.
Con fuerza. Y miro para atrás y venía con ese tubo de gas, los dos tubos de gas nuestros, y ahí arranqué con la perra.
Era 8,4 grados de grado Richter, con el epicentro 46 kilómetros al oeste de Canela Baja, afectando una parte muy importante del país. Hemos tenido, lamentablemente, la información que contamos con certeza es que hasta ahora hemos identificado la existencia de 3 fallecidos.
Strong aftershocks continue to rattle central Chile towards the south of the country's mining belt. Seismologists warn that the affected regions must remain vigilant for aftershocks and tsunamis, as it could be foreshock of a larger seismic event. Chile is in one of the most earthquake-prone regions in the world. It sits on an arc of volcanoes and fault lines circling the Pacific Ocean, known as the Ring of Fire. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the migrant crisis further worsened today as clashes broke out on the Serbian border as Croatia said that it cannot take any more refugees. Nearly 7,000 migrants have crossed the Croatian border in the past 24 hours after Hungary launched a crackdown on migrants and closed down its borders. The EU has rebuked Hungary's stand as tension escalated in the border regions.
Chaotic scenes in the Croatian border town of Tovarnik. A flood of migrants broke through the riot police lines in a desperate attempt to cross the border. Croatia is struggling to cope with nearly 7,000 arrivals since Wednesday, after Hungary closed down its border with Serbia, blocking previous routes. Even in the scorching sun, crowds of migrants chanted, "We want to go," many of them having exhausted their supplies of food and water.
Macedonia, no problem. In Serbia, no problem. In Hungary,
problem. It's closed. We open the door. So told open the door. Why no open? Why?
Weren't there. That it's closed before we arrived. So we come to here.
To Croatia.
And then Slovenia. We don't know about Slovenia actually, but we hope that we can cross to Germany.
Just a day before Hungary closed down its borders, and now they want Greece to secure its seas to stop illegal flow of migrants. Austria also called for new and better rules on migration, as thousands streamed into Croatia in search of new routes. Meanwhile, UN Chief Ban Ki-moon expressed shock, warning that migrants should be treated with dignity.
That's what we achieved. And if everybody would be taking care of its external borders, all European member states, especially those who have a Schengen border, the situation would be very much different.
Men, women, and children fleeing war and persecution deserve real support, including asylum. I ask those standing in the way of the rights of refugees to stand in their shoes.
The European Parliament has voted in favour of a new EU Commission proposal involving the relocation of 120,000 asylum seekers from Italy, Greece and Hungary among the EU member states. Now EU leaders will hold an emergency summit next week to discuss the crisis. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now for other international stories, let's get you Global Pulse. At least 12 people were killed when 3 bombs went off in mainly Shiite neighborhoods in Baghdad. 2 suicide bomb attacks in the central commercial district of Bab al-Sharji killed at least 8 people and wounded 18 others. A third blast in the nearby Bab al-Muaddam district killed 4 people and wounded 9. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the attacks. Soldiers fired warning shots at protesters outside Burkina Faso's presidential palace after the presidential guard burst into a cabinet meeting. The military has taken into the airwaves to declare it now controls the country, confirming a coup had taken place. The statement came a day after the elite presidential guard unit arrested the transitional president and the prime minister. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko signed a sanctions list barring nearly 400 individuals from entering Ukraine, including BBC correspondent Steve Rosenberg, producer Emma Wells and cameraman Anton Chicherov. This is the first sanctions lift against Russia and foreign individuals that Kiev introduced since the conflict broke out in April 2014 in eastern Ukraine, claiming over 8,000 lives so far. Hundreds of taxis from across Europe jammed Brussels in protest against the driver-hailing app Uber, whom they accuse of competing unfairly. Taxis drove slowly through the Belgian capital towards the Schumann roundabout, disrupting traffic. About 1,200 taxis hailing from France, Britain, Switzerland, Spain and Portugal took part in this protest. And changing tracks, let's get you all the updates from the world of sports in Sports Beat. Shot putter Manpreet Kaur shattered an 18-year-old national record and booked a berth in the 2016 Rio Olympics after winning gold at the 55th National Open Athletics Championship in Kolkata. The Patiala-based shot putter threw a 17.96 meters in her second attempt to smash the previous record of 17.43 meters set by Harban's Kaur in 1997. Indian shuttler Ajay Jairam was the lone survivor at the Korea Open after he defeated Hong Kong's Wong-Wing Ki Vincent to reach the quarterfinals of the men's singles. Dutch Open winner Jairam prevailed over world number 30 Vincent 17-21, 21-15, 21-15. Earlier, PV Sindhu bowed out of the tournament after losing to Japan's Sayaki Takahashi in the women's singles. Defending champions Barcelona were held to a 1-1 draw against Roma in the Group E Champions League match. Luis Suarez opened the scoring for the Catalans in the 21st minute. However, Messi's 100th appearance in the Champions League was spoiled after a wonderful 60-yard strike by Alessandro Florenzi as the Serie A side equalized 10 minutes later. In the Group G encounter, Chelsea put aside their slump in the Premier League by beginning their Champions League campaign with a comfortable 4-0 win over Maccabi Tel Aviv. The Blues, who enter the game with 1 win from 5 matches, took lead through the Williams strike. Oscar, Douglas Costa and Czech Fabregas then added another 3 to seal a comfortable win. And that's all we have for you on the news tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.